Hi guys, welcome to D is for Delicious Decorating. My name's Denise and I'm the owner of this cookie business, and I'm really excited you want to decorate cookies with me today. So the Memorial Day cookies that you have in front of you, we have a bunch of different designs. I actually added 2 more than what I have finished in front of you because I just want it to be super fun. So we have 6 different shapes in your kit. You have a star, you have a popsicle, which we can make look like this in a little bit. We have a flag, right? This one that's in the kit is going to be like a firework, and a heart, because we love our country, and the USA. All right, so before we jump in and get started on the cookies, I always think it's best to practice and talk about some cutting of the piping bags and how to use the piping bags. So with your practice sheet here, I am going to show you how I like to trim the bag, which is I trim off just a bit. I trim off enough that I'm going to be able to cover the lines. It's always best to trim just a little bit, and you can trim more as needed than to trim too much. So trim away from your cookies so that little plastic tip doesn't fall down on top of your cookies. And when you squeeze the piping bag, hold it at the top with your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so that's where I'm squeezing at the top. My left hand just kind of helps guide it along. I'm never going to actually touch the tip of my bag to the surface of the practice sheet. It's going to just be hovering a little bit above. So I'm squeezing gently, I'm guiding it along. Notice I trimmed the bag just enough that it's covering up the line. I press down and pull up. All right, let's try again, because that first line I lost a little pressure. I press down and pull up. That was better. So what I want you to work on right now is starting and stopping the line and trying your best to keep it going in a straight direction. I have mine at a little bit of an angle. I feel like it's easier to pull my bag up than just straight across. Press down and pull up. We're going to go over all of these lines and get a good feel for how the icing behaves. All right. Next set of lines, we've got some more movement, some swirls, so let's try it out. Notice the icing is following along the tip of the bag. I'm leading it along. This just takes some practice. I've been doing this for many years now, so it gets easier with practice, I promise. I have a feeling by the end of this set of cookies, you are going to feel way more experienced than you feel right now. Every time we practice, we get better at our skills. Here are some down-up movements. All right, here we come to circles. Just a heads up, circles can be one of the trickiest shapes to do because you have to keep your hand moving in the same fluid motion the whole time. So please don't get discouraged if this does not happen super easily. Circles are the trickiest shape to decorate. Not so bad. I'm going to try to improve on this one. I'm trying my best to not see any of the black line peeking out, but it's tricky. All right, how did your circles go? Hearts. We have a heart shape in our set, so this is good practice for the hearts. Because after this, we're going to move on to our cookies and jump right in. I just love these colors. It just makes me so excited for warm weather this summer. Red, white, and blue. Summertime. All right. So good job with your practice sheets. You guys can set those aside. We're not gonna need them. It was just for practicing. Before we move on to the cookies, why don't we trim our bags? So if you liked how you trimmed that one, go ahead and do that to the others. Remember, you can always trim off a little more. It's just a little more difficult if you trim off too much. I will show you rebagging the icing a little bit later, but that's why we included some piping bags. So if you happen to trim it just too much, you can trim off a bit more, put it in the bag and tie a knot. But hopefully you guys all just trimmed a little bit, and so we can move on. All right, so on the cookies, we are going to try and break this down into 3 steps, okay? We're going to outline, we're going to flood, and we're going to detail. So the first step is to just put outlines on all of these cookies. So that's all we're going to do in this first step. So I'm gonna choose my colors. I'm gonna try to make them very similar to what is done on some of our examples, so you can see how we achieve those looks. So on the star, I am going to go as close to the edge of the star without going over. You wanna try to keep your icing on the top of the cookie. It will create a good boundary for the icing when we get to the flooding stage. And have your toothpicks handy, because if you make a mistake and want to scrape off any icing, now's the time to do that. It's so easy to fix our mistakes right now because we're at the very beginning of the project. On this cookie, the popsicle, I'm doing the little popsicle stick first, and then I'm going to do the rest in a different color. I'm gonna make a white popsicle and put some fun detail on the top at the very end. So that's what I'm gonna do to begin with. All right, so I did the one popsicle that I wanna give this little iced look on top. On the other popsicle, I'm gonna do like the bomb pop type effect. So I'm gonna start with the handle again. And then I'm gonna make some red, white, and blue sections, like on a bomb pop. So the top, is not white. So here's what you do if you make a mistake. I always have to talk myself through this. Scrape it off. See, it's so good to make mistakes at this time because you can just remove it and no one will ever know. All right, red, white, and blue. There we go, Denise. At the top, red. So I'm gonna make that area here. Middle is white. All right, and final section is blue. Look at all the color, I love it. I'll just make this come across. That'll be nice and sharp edge on the bottom. All right, the flag, I'm gonna keep that white and make a white flagpole first. Okay, and then on the flag, think of it in terms of like the sections of the flag. There's a blue area in the top where the stars go, and the rest of the flag is left for the stripes. So I'm going to carve out that area first, block that off for my blue starry area. And then on the rest of the flag, I'm actually gonna make the rest white, and I will add my red stripes into this area a little bit later. You'll see how that's gonna work. We're going to make a technique called wet on wet. And that's how we're gonna make the stripes. All right, the firework. Let's see, which color background? I like to look at the set and kind of think about how much color I'm using. I'm doing a lot of white so far, So I'm gonna add some red because I don't have a lot of red going on yet. I'm gonna make, ooh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make the outside of this firework blast red, and I'm gonna fill it in a different color. Getting crazy. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing with red. I'm going to outline the heart red. I'm going as close to the edge as I can without going off the edge. If your piping icing goes off the edge of the cookie and it doesn't sit on top, get one of your toothpicks and just scrape it off and try again. And the USA. Let's do white. So I'm outlining, oh hey Ohio. I always just make it very wavy at the bottom. All right, so that is the outlining step. You're done with step one, great job. So the next step we're gonna do is flooding. So for this step, we're gonna take the same icing and we're going to need to trim our bags just a little bit more to flood the cookies. This helps the icing come out a little faster. So I'm not trimming a ton off, but I am trimming a little bit more. So it'll be easier to work with. And always trim away from your cookies so you don't get those little bits of plastic on top. All right, so on the star here, I am squeezing my piping bag. There is a lot of icing coming out, which is great. And I'm just working my way around the cookie. I like to go close to the edge and I swirl as I go. It helps to mix the different areas of icing together that I've just put on. And then after I've covered quite a bit of it, I use a toothpick and I go right up to the edge of the cookie and I push that icing to the border. Now I'm holding my piping bag, you'll notice, in my other hand, and you want to be really careful not to hold it over your lap or over your other cookies. So I'm going to set it down just because I'd like you to also set it down. That way we don't make any mistakes. So I take a peek. Yep, I got it to all the edges. And after you're done playing with it, it just starts to settle and all of those little waves go away and it dries as one solid surface. All right. Next up, the popsicle. I'm going to flood this whole thing white right now. And I'm going to add the detail in the last step. So this is just the base. I'm flooding this area white. Feel free to decorate these however you like. You don't have to do it the same way I am. I love to see everyone's ideas. So I'm sure you have your own thoughts on how to do this. And I hope you'll just have fun and play and be creative. Popsicle stick is this ivory. All right, and that's as far as I'm gonna go right now with this cookie. I'm gonna do some detailing to it in a bit. While I have the ivory in my hand, I'm gonna work on the next popsicle stick. Set that aside and move on to the red, white, and blue areas. And we're just filling in each area. Pushing it up to the edge. I think this part is so relaxing. Flooding cookies. Okay, and the blue. I always put on enough that it covers the whole cookie, and I try not to put on too much that it slips over the edge. So let's say that happens. Let's say you put on too much icing and it slips over. Like this one, I think I put on too much because I see it starting to kind of go over the edge a little bit. don't worry about it. What I am gonna do with mine is I'm gonna just let it be, and after it dries a little more, I can take my toothpick and clean up the edge. So if it starts to pour over the edge, best bet is to leave it alone. It kind of makes more of a mess if you play with it right now. Let it go, and then we fix it up in a bit. Deal? All right, flagpole. We'll start with the white. I'll start with my flagpole first. And when we work on the rest of the flag, we're going to try a technique that we haven't done yet. It's a marbling technique where you use white or wet on wet icing. So while this icing is wet, we are going to apply another color of icing to it. And it helps the colors to blend together and create one solid surface. I go through a lot of toothpicks when I work because they get messy, so I don't want to pick up my blue or my red toothpick because I don't want to add those colors. All right, so I've made the base white. I'm now going to grab my red. I'm going to wipe off the tip so I have a nice clean edge to work with. And I'm going to make some stripes, okay? I'm gonna make them a little wavy too because a flag never is perfectly still, I don't feel like. It's always kind of waving. So the wavy lines will give it that look. And maybe I'm gonna put one more at the top. I think I'm gonna add one right here. I feel like this area is a little too white. So I just added a little bit more to give it that look. I like that. And I'm gonna add the blue area here. Great. I'm going to push up my icing to the edge. And I'm gonna add the stars to this one a little bit later. So I'm gonna leave that one alone. Well, moving on. So I want to show you on this one what it looks like to use a different color inside. Up to this point, we've always flooded all these cookies with the same color that we've outlined it in. So on this one, I'm going to fill it in with a different color. See what you think. So I'm going to fill it in with blue. And I'm going to give this an effect that looks like a firework. These are my favorite types of fireworks, those big, beautiful, just colorful. I want to say boomer, and that's not the word, but I love 4th of July and watching them. I guess there probably aren't fireworks for Memorial Day, but you know, why not? I bet someone does fireworks for Memorial Day. So I'm pulling it up to the edge. And then I'm going to add some white. And I'm going to do some circles. So I'm going to do a circle like this and a circle like this. 2 circles. And I'm going to take my toothpick. I'm going to start in the middle and drag it out. Gives it a little bit of an effect. And just for fun, I'm going to add some sprinkles to this one. I'm going to just make it a lot of patterns and things going on. There we go. That is something. I don't know if that looks like a firework, but it sure was fun. Okay, let's move on to USA. I'm going to do another firework pattern on this USA, but I'm gonna make a bunch of little fireworks on this one. Filling in the whole thing. Setting aside my bag while I push the icing up to the edge. That way you won't make a mess and get it on your lap, or even worse, on the other cookies you just did. Because as much as we don't want to make a mess, if we hold our bag too close, we can't keep track of what we're doing and what our other hand is doing. So it's best to just set it down. All right, I clean off the tip a lot while I work. I'm going to make just some little blobs like polka dots. And then I'm going to use my toothpick to manipulate those little blobs. I'll show you what I mean in just a sec. And add some red ones too. All right. So I am going to pull out, I'm going to start in the center of each dot and drag out some areas. If you do 5, it looks like a star. So it kind of looks like little blasts, right? I'm doing all the blue first because my toothpick has so much blue and white on it. And then I'm going to give it a little white. And then I'm kind of going to put my top one in a different direction so they don't all look the same. I think with my blues I made them all look this exact same. I might even pull out a few extra little areas to make some look bigger than the others. Maybe I'll make the red ones with more points. This is the time to experiment and play. All right, sometimes I look and I see too much white and it's hard to stop. I have a hard time stopping with some cookies. Let's see if I regret this or if I'm happy with this. Yeah, I like it. There we go. There's a little firework. Next thing I'm gonna do is I don't wanna reach over this cookie, so I'm gonna move my next cookie closer to me. So as you're working, it's best not to be reaching way across your work area. It's great to have the cookies closer to you so your sleeves don't drag in the way, and just so you can see what's going on. If it's too far away, you kind of lose sight of that. All right, so on this art, I'm gonna show you another marbling method that we use. It involves putting another color on top of a wet color. So I'm putting a bunch of icing on. Notice I'm squeezing at the top of my piping bag too as I work, because I don't want to squeeze in the middle and risk the icing shooting out the top. Okay, so I put a bunch on. I think my icing that I'm using right now is a little bit on the thicker side, so I see it's a little wavier. So something I'm gonna do to help it settle down, I'm gonna tap it a few times. See how all those ripples are kind of going away? All right, so I got it to settle, and now I want to do some marbling. I'm gonna add a few stripes. I'm gonna use both blue and white, and I'm gonna have a toothpick handy. If you want to try marbling, you need to have a toothpick ready for this technique. And if you've been to one of my classes before, or if you've watched one of our videos, you know we like to do this. It's such a fun, easy way to make the cookie look a little bit extra special. So I'm dragging my toothpick down and up as I work my way across the cookie. And right now it's blending those lines together, and it's giving this fun pattern, and it's going to dry as one solid surface and make a nice background. So finish flooding the rest of your cookies, and then we will give it a little bit of time to dry. This might be a good time to go get a little snack. You know, maybe take a little walk or something, eat a hamburger, hot dog, and then come back and we're gonna detail after these cookies have dried just a little bit. right, so we've let our cookies set up a little bit. Notice that they're not glossy anymore. They should be matte finish. This way we know that any of our details will stand up on top instead of sinking down in, some of the techniques that we just did. So we're going to rebag some of our icing now, and let me show you how to do that. So I put my hand inside a bag, open it up, and because we trimmed these bags so big, we're going to put them into a different piping bag so we can make fine details. So off to the side, I'm trimming off a big chunk. That way it will come out faster. And I'm squeezing out that icing from the first bag, putting it into the second. At the top, you can put a rubber band, you can tie a knot. It's close. A rubber band might be the best bet because I know mine was a little tight. But I'm going to do that to my other cookies as well. I might just do it to 2 of mine. You can do it to all 3 if you'd like, but I think I'm going to use mostly red and white to do some details with. All right. So now we're going to start again. Trim off our bags just a little bit, not even as much as the very first time that we trimmed our bags. I want to do some really fine details. Think of a fine point pen or marker. All right, so let's begin with the star. I'm just going to give it a simple outline, and I can already see that it's just a little too narrow. If you squeeze it off to the side, you can see what it will look like and then make that decision from there, whether you'd like to trim more. I want to trim a little bit more. I want it a little thicker. So I'm just going to give it a simple outline. There we go. Just a simple border. If you want to get a little fancy, you could even put another star inside. It's up to you. Maybe I'll give this one a smiley face. Here's something you can do if you still want to keep going. Because sometimes it's hard for me to stop on a cookie. There we go. Smiley face. All right, now this popsicle, remember I said before that I put too much icing on it? You can see how it's spilling off the edge. If you take your toothpick and just scrape it along the edge, you can get off some of that drip. And just clean it up. You can make it look almost as if it never happened. Much better. All right, so I'm gonna give it this like drippy effect on top, kind of like it started to melt. Maybe it was one of these cherry ice popsicles or something, and let's say there was just a lot of icing on top and it started dripping. So I'm gonna fill this in, which I trimmed it small, so look at how long it's taking me. I have to work quickly when it's trimmed so small. Almost there. Remember what to do to help it to settle a little bit faster. If you tap it a few times. There we go. And if you'll notice on this cookie here, there's like a little shine mark, a reflection mark. So the way that we did that is we just add that while it's wet. It's almost like a really long teardrop. Just makes it look a little reflective. You know, this one might be a fun one to add sprinkles to also. Maybe I should have just added sprinkles instead of the reflection mark. I'm going to cover it up because I think this looks, I like to use these patriotic sprinkles. If you don't like sprinkles, don't add them. Don't feel that you need to. They're just a fun alternative. All right, I'm done. And I'm done with this bomb pop because I already did all of my work in the first step. So I'm gonna move on to the flag. So for the flag, I'm going to create some little stars like this. All right. So I trimmed this really fine. It's kind of hard to make stars. I'm going to show you two different types you can do. So this one's thicker. I'm not putting them in real rows. I'm just trying to space them out a little bit. I'm going to go back over this one. There we go. I know we can't fit 50 on here. We'll add as many as we can. I had to trim my bag really small to make this happen. But if you put polka dots here, that would also look nice. We do polka dots sometimes for our flag. Some of these areas I want to give it more of a peak, so you can take your toothpick and just drag it out a bit. All right. The other cookies, you know, there's so much marbling and wet on wet going on in the background that you don't really need to do much more. One thing you could do is do an outline around the heart, or you could write USA. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm trimming my white just a little bit more so it stands out. So I'm going to write U-S. That looks neat. And on the United States, I just really love the firework pattern, so I think I might leave that one alone. But have fun. Really, anything you attempt and try to do, I think that you're gonna be happy with your result because they're gonna look cute and they're gonna taste really good too. So please tag us, share your photos on social media, Facebook or Instagram. We'd love to see your work and we hope you had fun. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.